Why does the spacebar not work to play the movie on Disney+? That seems like the most basic subscription video on demand service. I want to preface this with the reality that I do not like tearing apart other people's work. I don't think that that's good taste or good form. As someone who has sunk a lot of their life into making films, I know what it takes to put anything on the screen. And if you've never done it, be cautious with the amount that you rip other people apart who are doing it their best, because it is difficult. Also, this whole thing is gonna be filled with spoilers. You should probably go watch it first, because I'm not gonna try to dance around things that would ruin the movie. Okay, the wife and I watched Artemis, Fowl last night on Disney+. This is a movie that has had a very, very difficult run of it, let's call it that. I don't remember these books at all. I just remember liking them. I read them, I was into them. Like, Twitter is on fire because everyone's like, well, they did this and they changed the race of this character and they changed the gender of this character. Look, I personally couldn't care less. I was approaching this movie last night just based on the fact that everyone seems to have hated it. Hopefully this will give words to some of your internal feelings. Kind of like the movie Inside Out did for an entire generation. I felt like the female actresses in this film actually did very well. They were the standouts in the cast. I felt like the male leads struggled at moments. I felt like Holly Short's character did fairly well overall. I felt like Colin Farrell's character, Artemis Fowl Sr., did fairly well. And I actually really liked the look of the bodyguard character. I can't remember his name. He looked menacing, he looked like his character, but his delivery and his character, I just felt like fell really flat. I felt like Artemis Fowl fell really flat, and there was just like extreme arrogance that they played on with Artemis Fowl, and it wasn't cute, and you didn't feel sympathetic towards him. We want to be sympathetic towards him, but he's kind of a tool. I do feel like the cinematography of this film was beautiful. Like, the location scouting was top notch, and the actual cinematography, the lighting, the shooting, the movement of the camera, the blocking of the actors was, for the most part, very, very good. It was very pretty. The visual effects were fantastic, other than, like, okay, I saw a lot of people lose their ever-loving minds on Twitter over, let me see if I can find it, this shot of Mulch Diggums. The way he, has to dig through the ground is he unhinges his jaw. It is a dwarf. It's a massive dwarf eating his way through the ground and pooping it out in the process. I don't know what you expect of a visual effects crew at that point. Like, what do you want that to look like?
Yes. Dwarfish giganticus.
Everybody, stand back.
It's feeding time.
That's a thing?
Thoughts?
What?
The biggest thing for me that was off in this film was the pacing. Pacing, in my opinion, is everything when it comes to a movie. Most movies that you didn't like because either they were poorly acted or they were poorly paced. It felt like they finished the movie, it was super long and it was super boring. Someone went, oh, this is not good. Make it go faster. Because that's kind of what we do on Instagram and YouTube, is we just cut as fast as we possibly can and give you different camera angles, and now you feel much more interested in the subject matter. And it feels like that's what they did with the movie. As well as in the production and in the writing, they tried to fit 2 books into 1 movie. Harry Potter took the last book and split that 1 book into 2 movies. I think Hunger Games did the exact same thing. It tends to be a trope that they do. Did Twilight do the same thing? Is it just a young adult fantasy novel? Maybe Owen Colfer and crew should have taken a chapter out of the other young adult novels. I never emotionally connected with the moments they wanted me emotionally to connect. What happens when something is fast-paced and it's moving really quickly is it begins to build in you as an audience member a tension. It's like, I don't have enough time to actually receive everything I'm seeing on screen, so I have to receive bits and pieces, and it creates confusion, and it creates this reality where I haven't gotten all of the facts. So what you'll normally see is moments of tension built into lulls. And what the lull gives me is it gives me a moment to actually sit and receive everything on screen. The movie Inception, Christopher Nolan, one of the best pacers of film of all time. Right at the end when limbo's collapsing and they're sort of falling into this chaos and several characters have fallen into the abyss and the whole world is collapsing around them. It's really fast moving, chaotic camera movements and all of these things, and then it gives me the lull so that I can really receive and absorb every single thing that just took place, and now I can see the context that those fast-moving things created. Even more than pacing, I think the pacing felt so much more exaggerated as awful because it didn't give the characters time to really develop their desires and for me to sympathize or empathize with the characters. Where the whole time that these two have had interactions, Holly Short and Artemis Fowl, the whole time that they've been having interactions, they are opposed to one another. They have conflicting desires as characters. The character development that they're sort of going for here is that they're trying to sync up their desires so that they get on the same team and they go. The problem is there was never a moment preceding to this in the story for them to really connect ahead of this. If they'd have just added in one of the fight scenes, them across the room, sort of locking eyes, and or she doing something to help him. If anything had happened where you had seen a fusion of their goals and desires, this moment would have produced what they intended for it to produce. But because they didn't do anything to really lead to that, it just seems like two kids talking with no backstory or context that aligns their vision. So there's this other moment. The bodyguard has just been shot. I can't remember. It was so unimpacting. It's so sad that I can't remember how he died. Spoiler alert, he died. Oh, the troll knocked down the thing and it crashed on his head. Body, not head. Okay, this was a good moment in the sense that we see the altruism of the bodyguard. He pushes Artemis out of the way so that he can save his life. We see that his most important thing to him is Artemis. What becomes confusing about this is we introduced his niece at some point, who he should also care about probably even more than Artemis, but also we haven't had a ton of other moments throughout the film where we see his undying love for Artemis Fowl II and for Artemis Fowl Sr. What we see is him in an entirely utilitarian perspective. So we see the bodyguard doing his job. Had we seen that, we would have cared more when he sacrificed his life because we would have recognized this is who this character is. If you're gonna kill a character off and you want me to care about it, it can't be some extra in the background. Okay, that's an over-exaggeration for this, but it really felt like he didn't have a ton of screen time. You're not super sympathetic because he hasn't been deeply embedded in the psyche of the film. What you ultimately get is really flat, static characters that me as an audience member don't care what happens to them because I don't empathize with what they want and I don't feel like I've connected with them on an emotional level, so that a moment like this doesn't really work. All right, that's enough. I don't want to completely shred it, okay? A lot of people worked really hard on this, and if you liked it and you didn't notice anything that I saw wrong with it, great, the movie did its job. However, if you watched it and you finished it, or you shut it off halfway through and you were like, I didn't like that at all. My personal opinion was that it was paced really strangely, the whole thing moved too fast, there was not enough emotional moments to stop and really let emotion sit. And the same thing sort of happened with the character development. And it ends up creating a dissociation between the characters and their plight and what they want, and the audience and what we want for them. As an audience member, if you feel like you don't want them to get what they want, or you don't care what they want, it's gonna leave you uninterested, it's gonna leave you emotionally unattached. And if there's one thing relationships can tell us, being emotionally unattached is never a good plan. Right, ladies? Hopefully that helped. Even if you're not super into filmmaking, this at least gave you some context and gave you some words to better express yourself when you don't like a movie. Have a great day. Make sure you're subscribed, click the bell, leave a comment. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm open to suggestion, or maybe leave a movie that you want us to do this on next. Have a great day. Bye. You can click this one, or you can click this one, or you can click this and it will subscribe. You should subscribe. It works this way too. This. Bye.